A warm welcome to today's talk. It is Thursday the 11th of April. Now, there are some concerns about the vaccine rollout in Europe, which we're going to address, but I'm going to start off with some good news about the vaccine, and this has got implications for everywhere. And this is that the European Medicines Agency have just, breaking news as they might say in the news outlets, European Medicines Agency recommends COVID-19 vaccine Janssen for authorisation in the European Union. So very good news, very welcome news. Read the press release from the European Medicines Agency for yourself. We have been expecting this about now, actually, so it's not too surprising. And the news is good. It's a very, very promising development, because Janssen should start delivering vaccines by April and significant amounts by May. Very significant amounts by May. Now, we heard yesterday that there's good supplies of the Johnson & Johnson Janssen vaccine in, where was it? Wisconsin, I think it was yesterday. We heard that there's good supplies there, so that is encouraging. This is going to roll out quickly. The stockpiles in the United States weren't that great. I think there was about 4.5 million, but they're ramping production up really, really rapidly. So there's going to be lots of these pretty soon, certainly within a month or two. It's an adenovirus vector, so it works in a very similar way to the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. It's stored at normal fridge temperatures. If you are giving out the vaccines and you've got some left, you don't need to rush them all out the same day. Actually, I haven't said that. Rushing the vaccines all out on the same day was good for me, because that's how I got my Pfizer vaccine, because there was some left at the end of the shift. 21 days for me, by the way, but of course behaviour hasn't changed since I had the vaccine. so that was good for me. But generally, we want vaccines to be able to, at the end of the shift, just put them into the fridge, take them out the next day. And of course, that's exactly what we can do with this Janssen vaccine, because it's stored at normal fridge temperatures. So brilliant, easy to use, easy to transport. Good news all around. And of course, the biggie is it's one dose. 2-dose trials of the Johnson & Johnson Janssen vaccine are being carried out to see if it improves efficacy. But at the moment, it's on a 1-dose strategy, which of course is even better. It's going to even accelerate the vaccine program more. It's good news. So significant amounts by May. So this will be going out big time, May, June, early summer in Europe. Right, so the European Medicines Agency recommend conditional marketing authorisation for 18 years and older, so that makes sense. That's where the phase 3 trial data is. Concluded by consensus. Interesting, I wonder if they didn't all agree. That's interesting. Consensus. Anyway, that the data on the vaccine were robust and met criteria of efficacy, it works, safety and quality. So all very encouraging. Now, this is the 4th vaccine for the European Union now. Pfizer was first, then the Moderna, then the Oxford AstraZeneca, now the Janssen & Janssen, the Johnson & Johnson Janssen vaccine. So the way I understand this is Johnson & Johnson is this huge international firm, and Janssen is the pharmaceutical division of the Johnson & Johnson firm. So the 4th dose now, and it's the first single-dose vaccine. Phase 3 data on this vaccine we've looked at, it's good. There was over 44,000 people in the trial. It was a randomised controlled trial. It was randomised. There was a control group. It was a trial. And it was half and half. Half went into the vaccine group. Half went into the placebo group. And they found out that the people in the placebo group got quite a lot more infections than the people in the vaccine group, indicating the efficacy of the vaccine. And the phase 3 data was 67%. Reduction in the number of symptomatic cases after 2 weeks. Now, that doesn't sound much, 67%. Well, it's well over the 50% efficacy that would normally be considered worthwhile for rolling a vaccine out. But, and there's really big buts, and they're really good buts, from the United States. In the United States, efficacy data, 72% effective in preventing moderate illness. So this is saying 67% effective in preventing symptomatic illness. That is what we know from the original data. But the American data, and of course it's the same vaccine, same manufacturing process exactly. US efficacy data, 72% in preventing moderate illness. which is good. 85% effective in protecting against severe illness, and after 1 month, 100% effective in preventing hospitalizations and deaths. So really, we could say, I mean, this could change. Of course, it can't go more than 100%. It can only go less. But it could change. There could be the odd person dies. It's quite possible, because this vaccine is going to be carried on being closely supervised, of course, after release. But so far from the American data, it prevents 100% of deaths after 1 month. So the US data saying just wait for 2 weeks, not enough, I don't think. 1 month here for protection. So we see that the more severe the illness, the greater the level of protection. 67 against symptomatic, 72 against moderate, 85 against severe, 100% against deaths. Now, what this means is, as in the United States, as this vaccine is rolled out across Europe, cases may continue to increase, potentially, but deaths will go down, because everyone who has the vaccine is massively protected, potentially 100% protected against death. Although when millions of people get it, there might be the odd death. But basically, this is massively protective. It's a very, very significant step forward for Europe, for the European Union countries. Side effects, usually mild or moderate. Clearing up within 1 or 2 days, a couple of days. Pain at the injection site, headache, tiredness, muscle pain, nausea. Yeah, it can happen, but small price to pay. And we've been looking at actually the minority of people get it with the other vaccines. So likely it's to be the minority of people get significant side effects with this as well. And of course, pharmacovigilance will continue. So this will be monitored all the time as it's rolled out across Europe, as indeed it is as it's being rolled out across the United States. And Canada, of course, approved this on the 5th of March, I think it was. Canada approved this. UK, now the UK, we're of course rolling out the Pfizer and the Oxford AstraZeneca. We're expecting supplies, I believe, in the next week or two of Moderna in the UK. And we've also ordered 30 million doses of this. But the UK came to the party a little late on the Johnson & Johnson, unfortunately. Just as the European Union came to the party a little bit late on the, on both of them really. But we're expecting some soon, and we'll end up with more vaccines than we need probably in the UK. But good to know we've got some coming. So that's the good news on the vaccine. Now, the BBC have made a bit of a meal of this, actually, I must say. This is why I'm mentioning it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have bothered. But this is the information here. So Denmark have brought about a 14-day halt to the use of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. So they've suspended their rollout of the Oxford AstraZeneca for 14 days, because some people, we believe 3 or 4 people in Denmark have got blood clots, and there's been 1 death, we believe, in Denmark. So quite concerning that people have had blood clots and a death after the vaccine. Health Minister in Denmark said it's a precautionary measure that they've suspended this, and he says we must respond in a timely and careful manner. Now, the BBC have also flagged up the case in Austria, we believe. Now, it's unclear that I think this woman's in Austria. Now, whether this death that's being referred to as in Denmark, I'm not really sure whether there was a death in Denmark as well, but there was certainly one in Austria. And it was a 49-year-old woman, died 10 days after the vaccination. So she had the vaccine, and 10 days later, unfortunately, there was a fatal event. So Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg have also stopped rollout of this particular batch, and there's about 1 million vaccines in this batch that they've suspended the rollout of. So it doesn't sound good, people dying after the vaccine. But of course, we have to put this in context, don't we? So the European Medicines Agency have actually been quite proactive on this, which is good to see. So there's probably 3 cases and it looks like there's 1 death. So it looks like there might have been some double counting with that death in Denmark. It wasn't entirely clear that the BBC may have been referring to that death in Austria. So the European Medicines Agency saying there's been 1 death. So probably 3 cases and 1 death of blood clots. 1 million doses in the batch. And the Safety Committee is reviewing the Austrian case. So the European Medicines Agency Safety Committee, rightly, is reviewing it. But they have said there is currently no indication that the vaccine caused these blood clots and deaths. So sounding fairly good news. That's the rain starting outside, which you can probably hear. It was sunny 10 minutes ago. We have this saying in England, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes and it'll change. Scotland, it's even worse. Changes in 10 minutes there as well. Right, so the conditions are, these conditions are not listed as side effects with a vaccine, the European Medicines Agency is saying. So it's not the sort of side effects we would expect, so it's surprising. Thromboembolic events. Now, thromboembolic. Now, a thrombus is a blood clot where there's not supposed to be one in a blood vessel. So if you have a vein in your leg there, for example, and there's a blood clot there's a blood clot in there, where that blood clot forms, that's called a thrombus. That's a thrombus. But the trouble is, bits of this blood clot can break off and float away up in the circulatory system. And when it breaks off, it's called an embolism. Or the condition's called embolism. One will be called an embolus, several will be called emboli. And anyway, so that's what it means, thromboembolism, blood clots and bits breaking off. And of course, the trouble is, these go through the circulatory system, through the right side of the heart, and then they can go to the lungs where they can get stuck in the smaller blood vessels is the problem. Quite wet now. Right, okay. So thromboembolic events in vaccinated people is no higher than seen in the general population, according to the European Medicines Agency. And we're going to check on that. I think they're right, but we're going to check on it. And altogether, there's 22 cases of thromboembolic events. 3 million people have been vaccinated with the AstraZeneca vaccine in the European area. So there's been 22 cases of these blood clots, with the thrombus usually in the deep veins of the leg and the emboli breaking off that can lodge in the lungs. Of course, if they lodge in the lungs, it's called a pulmonary embolism, which is the problem. Right, I hope you can still hear me with all that rain outside. Wow. Now, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine was authorised by the European Union on the 29th of January. So that means that it's been given out for about a month, and as we say, about 3 million doses. So is this surprising? Is this unexpected? I'll just hope you can hear me. Is this unexpected? Now, we looked at deaths after vaccination recently, and I said I wasn't concerned by the deaths after vaccination, and of course lots of people were appalled. I'm saying I'm not concerned about deaths. Of course I'm concerned about deaths. What I meant was the number of deaths didn't surprise me. And of course we're concerned about these people getting thromboembolic disease. They're individuals, it's a problem. But is it more than we would normally expect, is the question. So we look at the epidemiology of venothromboembolism, and here's a good quality research review paper on that for your perusal. So the incident rate, what is the incident rate of thromboembolism? Blood clot and blood clots moving. What is the incidence of that? So in men, it's 130 cases per year per 100,000 of the population. Women, it's 110 per 100,000 of the population per year. So that kind of balances out, doesn't it? About 120 cases per 100,000 of the population per year. That's what we'll kind of expect. So in a city of 100,000 people, we would expect about 120 people to develop this condition in a year. So that works out at 10 cases per month per 100,000. So if there's 120 cases per year per 100,000, divide that by 12, 10 cases per month per 100,000 is what we'd expect. That's 100 cases per month per million people. So we would expect about 100 cases of venothromboembolism per million of the population per month normally. That's what we would expect. Going to doctors, going to A&E departments, that's what we would expect normally. Therefore, for 3 million people, and we believe about 3 million people, or getting on for 3 million people, have had the vaccine already in Europe, we would expect any random 3 million people to have about 300 thromboembolic events expected per month. So in a population of, so it's 100 per month per million, 3 million people, 300 events we'd expect per month. And how many have we had reported? 22. So we would expect this whether someone is vaccinated or not. And I must say, for Denmark, Austria, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania to suspend their vaccination programme for 14 days based on this, which is actually less than you would expect through probability, I find rather strange that they've done that, to be quite honest, because we would expect now in those 3 million people that, or even if it's less than that have been vaccinated, we would have expected 300 thromboembolic events. This is why we have randomised trials. We have control groups, people that haven't been vaccinated. So, if the health authorities in these countries took a sample of 3 million people that hadn't been vaccinated, we would expect them to find in that what is essentially a control group 300 thromboembolic events. Thromboembolic events is what we would expect. So, must say I am quite bemused by why they've cancelled that. And really, I don't think that story needed to be run, because it's not a story at all, really. So am I worried about those thromboembolic events based on that data? Yes, I'm sorry that the individuals have had it. Does it concern me that is there an indication it would be caused by the vaccine? No, that doesn't concern me at all. At all. So there we go. Not worried about that. Not being callous about the individuals, but I don't think it's a reason to cancel the vaccination programme. But there you go, 5 governments disagree with me. So, of course, the UK government has got access to the same data and we haven't cancelled it. So, a lot of things don't make sense, Governments making that kind of decision, National Medicines Agencies making that kind of decision. Anyway, there you go. Czech Republic cases are increasing dramatically. Now, do I have a... This is actually deaths. Look, Czech Republic deaths very, very high, much higher than the United States where they're going down, much higher than the United Kingdom where they're going down, adjusted for population size, of course. Going up quite dramatically in Brazil, and we know that the amount of deaths in Brazil are greatly underreported. So deaths increasing in the Czech Republic, and we know that cases have done as well, and we'll be looking at Hungary and Poland in a minute as well. So Czech Republic have actually sent patients to Poland because their hospital capacity is now full, or their intensive care capacity is full in the Czech Republic. So they're now sending patients to Poland. Good that the Polish authorities are receiving them, but the Polish hospitals are going to be stretched themselves soon, because this is the new confirmed cases per million. As we see Poland's going up, therefore their hospitalizations will be going up as well, as we see the new variants causing havoc in Poland and Hungary and Czech Republic, just as they did in the UK with our massive increase in cases that we had. Hungary cases are highest since December. So increasing cases. Poland, as we've seen, increasing cases. Highest since late November. Apparently there's been increasing loosening amongst Poles towards anti-COVID measures. So population of Poland has got a bit fed up, apparently. And this is the result, that the cases are increasing as measures have not been adhered to. So that is a concern, and when we're dealing with these new variants, we know that they can carry on going up for a while. Now Brazil, let's look at Brazil in a little more detail now. Now, it's hard to see why the death rate should be is going up in Brazil, but why it should be so much lower than the Czech Republic. Some of that, of course, the Czech Republic is quite a sophisticated country in some ways, and its reporting systems are good, so that's probably accurate, whereas in Brazil we know that the amount of deaths can be underreported. particularly in more rural areas. We know that the Amazonian areas, deaths are often under-reported. So to look at Brazil, large population, of course, second highest deaths in the world after the United States, 240 million population. That was an extra 79,000 cases in 24 hours, and that's based on somewhat limited testing. Deaths around about 2,000 per day now, unfortunately. And this is official figures, so it's the minimum. 270,000 deaths now total. Second highest number of deaths after the United States. And as we see there, even per capita now, it's the second highest after the Czech Republic. So this is one of the doctors in Brazil. The worst moment in pandemic in Brazil, hospitals, overload and even collapse of health systems in Brazil. Now, this is bad, and as we'll see, a lot of it is this new variants driven. But no question at the moment, people are really suffering in Brazil, and we believe that there's people not getting the treatment that they need in Brazil at the moment, which is seems to be the situation, and of course is an appalling situation. Epidemiologists speaking, if we don't start vaccinating the population here very soon, it will become a massive tragedy. It took a long time for politicians to act, he says diplomatically. We know the leadership in Brazil has been difficult and in denial. We've looked at this several times. We're not going to go into it again. P1 mutation, big problem in Brazil, could be up to twice as transmissible as the original virus. So this is preliminary data coming out of Brazil now. So the UK variant, we think about 30-35% more transmissible. The Brazilian variant could be twice as transmissible. So it's looking like it's more transmissible. We absolutely have to keep this Brazilian variant out of the United Kingdom, the United States, Europe, because it's causing a lot of problems in Brazil now, and this is one of the most concerning ones. Chances of reinfection, again, according to preliminary data from Brazil with the P1 variant, so if someone's already had the disease, chances of reinfection are like 25 to 60%. Now, I know that's very wide error margins, but basically people can become reinfected with this new variant. Now, hopefully their disease is massively milder. We don't have full data on that yet, but this is concerning. So it's been said by scientists in Brazil that Brazil is a natural laboratory when coronavirus goes relatively unchecked. So poor compliance from the population. I was going to say poor political leadership, but the leadership's actually been working against control measures to some extent. Then you get hundreds of millions, what did we say the population was? 240 million. That's lots of virus replications. When the virus replicates, it's going to mutate. And those mutations will be selected in if they're more transmissible. It's that simple. And of course, the mutations will also be selected for by natural selection if they're able to infect people that have been previously infected. That's another natural selection mechanism that will lead to higher prevalences of variants of concern. And there's several variants of concern circulating. So this P1 with multiple mutations is one. There are others. Just because there's been so much ongoing viral replication in Brazil for so long, these spontaneous mutations have arisen, and they have been selected for in various ways. And the people are suffering as a consequence. So rapid vaccination is required. We need to get hundreds of millions of doses of vaccine to Brazil to give population. Protection and non-pharmaceutical interventions are also required, which, to be quite honest, haven't been effectively done and haven't been effectively led. Vaccines remain efficacious, but probably less so. So the reduction in the efficacy of the vaccines, we don't know. I mean, we're probably talking about figures of 10% less efficacious, something like that. What we don't know is how good the vaccines will be at preventing severe illness and death, because as we looked at before, this data here, the vaccine preventing against severe cases and deaths, 100% effective in preventing hospitalizations and deaths. So even although the current vaccines might mean that more people actually get the infections, hopefully it will mean that people still don't die. But basically, we don't know that yet. We're waiting to find that out. And to be quite honest, I prefer not to find out in the first place, because we'd rather it went away in Brazil, but it's not. So Brazil is one to watch, and we really must keep these mutations out of the rest of the world. That is going to be absolutely vital. Otherwise, we could have a resurgence of cases, as there are in Brazil. Probably less so because of the vaccination programs that are going on, but basically we don't want to find out. So, and it's also this idea of it's not over for anyone till it's over for everyone. Completely, that's true. We're going to have to really focus vaccination efforts on these poorer, harder to reach, highly populated areas, if we're going to get rid of this virus altogether, as I still hope to do. Okay, that is us for today. Some good news and some not so good news, some things to watch. But anyway, thank you for watching this video.